Good evening and welcome to this Learning Connect broadcast on skilling the energy transition in Albania. This comes to you from the European Training Foundation, the European Union agency that supports countries in modernizing their education and training systems to promote economic growth and social cohesion. And on our panel this evening, we are very privileged to have Dorina Islami, who describes herself as a curious human seeking the truth within. And Dorina works on leadership coaching and sustainability projects at Schneider Electric. And at the same time, Dorina is also very active in promoting vocational education and skills as a founding member of the NGO Albanian Skills. So welcome, Dorina, and I'd also very happy to have my colleague Umuhan Bardak, who is a senior expert of the European Training Foundation, who specializes in analysis of skills demand. And Umuhan has been leading work of the ETF over several years, investigating how the demand for skills is changing in different industries and different countries. With the impact of technology change, with the drive to greener futures and other major factors of change. So welcome, Umuhan. And we also have Romain Boitard, who is another a dear colleague of mine, ETF expert, responsible, among other things, for coordinating our activities in Albania and liaising with the EU delegation and our other partners and stakeholders in the country. So welcome, Romain.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'd also like to welcome our many followers from around the world. So if you're out there, please tell us who you are, where you're from, and share your questions and comments with us in the chat to this broadcast. So today we're going to talk about how skills needs are changing in the Albanian energy sector with the impact of technology change and the drive towards greater sustainability and less environmental impact, and we're going to discuss what this means for education and training and how the EU and other international donors can support this process. As many of you out there know, I think one of the headline policies of the European Union is the European Green Deal, which is a package of policy measures and financial support instruments aimed at making Europe carbon neutral by 2050, and it aims to do so without leaving anyone behind. So there's an important inclusion pillar to that. And in the post-COVID recovery period, 1/3 of EU investment is going to go to green initiatives. And this applies not just to EU support for the member states, but it also applies to EU support for our partner countries around the world. And that, of course, includes Albania. So energy is one of the industries with a huge environmental impact, and the ETF has carried out a study of changing skills needs in the sector, and the results of this study are going to be presented to our local stakeholders in Albania and tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in an online event. And I think we're going to share in the chat now, we're going to share a link to that if anyone's interested in joining. So in the course of this conversation, you will get a bit of a sneak preview of some of the findings of that, thanks to Umuhan here, who has been leading this study. But just to kick off, Dorina, I mean, I don't know to what extent our followers and listeners know about the energy sector in Albania. So if you could please tell us about it and tell us what the sector is doing to respond to technology change and respond to the need to be more sustainable and have less environmental impact.
Thank you, Alastair. But before answering your question, I would like to thank ETF for inviting me as a representative from both private sector and civil society to express my opinion and share the experience gained so far with skills promotion and vocational education and training, and let's say even for broader things. So now, to coming back to your question about the energy sector in Albania. According to Eurostat, total primary energy production of Albania in 2019 was 1.7 million tonnes, where around 90% of it from renewable energy, mainly hydropower. Our country is a net importer of the energy, and almost 1/3 of the total energy consumption is being imported, and 37% of it it derives from renewables, mainly from hydroelectric power. And here it's interesting to know that Albania has outstanding sun irradiation with most of its territory. So our country has the highest number of sunshine hours per year in Europe. On average, there are around 286 days with up to 2,007 hours of sunshine per year. It's pretty interesting. Therefore, it is an ideal place where every hectare of land that can be used can generate up to €250,000 yearly. So it's interesting even by a business perspective. Now, related to sustainability and reduction of environment impact, I would like to mention that the World Energy Trilemma Index ranked Albania 43rd amongst 108 countries this year for energy sustainability and first among the region, while positioned 4th worldwide in terms of environmental sustainability, ranking behind Switzerland, Sweden, and Norway. So we are in a really good position linked with let's say, the environmental sustainability. But all mentioned so far does not mean that we are done with our mission to reduce carbon emissions and bring about a greener society. Since 2016, Albania is part of the Paris Climate Change Agreement and reports its developments to UN, sticking to the commitment to reduce the CO2 emissions by 11.5% till 2030. I would like to add here that our country is working to align with EU energy policies on several topics like supply, infrastructure and distribution, to liberalize the internal energy market, diversify energy production sources, to include renewable energies and increase the energy efficiency as well. Some progress actually is made in preparing the legal framework for renewable energy after a long time of discussions. But despite the prediction of the National Renewable Energy Action Plan that 38% of the gross final energy consumption will come from renewable resources, on the other side, with the rapidly change of the climate, the need to further develop renewable resources projects like photovoltaic or wind is becoming higher. As far as we are aware, recent years, the Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy signed several agreements with foreign and local companies for the construction of photovoltaic sites and parks located in all the country, actually, in north, central, and south of Albania. Some of them has already started the production and distribution of the green energy inside the Albanian grid. And we are proud to say that we have let's say, contributed for the let's say, building of these sites and parks through our partners here in Albania.
Okay, thank you, Dorina. I'm going to turn to Roman now. I mentioned earlier the Green Deal, the European Green Deal, and its impact also on the countries surrounding the European Union, and particularly the accession countries like Albania. Can you give us a bit of an idea of how the EU is supporting the energy transition in Albania, or how it plans to support the energy transition in Albania, and what's the role of the ETF in all this?
Thank you, Alastair. Yeah, that's a very broad question, but I can link it to some of the things that have been mentioned previously. I mean, we've already talked about the Paris Agreement, and to a large extent, the European Green Deal is a set of policy objectives that will make the commitments made at the Paris through the Paris Declaration possible and legally binding. So it's a set of a very broad set of policy objectives, but the main aspect of it is that by 2050, the European trading bloc would be the first economic trading bloc in the world to be carbon neutral. So that's of course very exciting and a very monumental endeavor. So no net emissions by 2050, clean economic growth, and most importantly, no person and no place left behind. The social inclusion dimension is very important, and it stipulates in throughout the various documents that all segments of the population must benefit from this opportunity. So one may say, well, okay, well, this is mostly for European member states. What does it have to do with Albania? And to that, I would answer that we're looking at quite a long calendar up to 2050, and we all work under the assumption that by then Albania will definitely be a member state, and before that EU is already the largest trading partner of Albania. So the European Green Deal, although a European Union policy, is absolutely relevant for the reality of Albania. Now, specifically on energy, the European Green Deal proposes that countries should aim for a secure and affordable energy supply everywhere through a fully integrated, interconnected, and digitalized energy market. That's a mouthful. Apologies for that. So it proposes to prioritize energy efficiency by notably improving the energy performance of buildings to start with. This is a problem globally, but certainly is also an issue in Albania. This is something on which quick wins can be made in terms of carbon emission reductions. Develop a power sector that is largely based on renewable sources. So as Doriana explained to us earlier, this is to a large degree already the case in Albania, but the demand for energy is only going to increase, and we already need to think how we're going to fulfill future needs. And that needs to also come from renewable and not only hydropower. As some of us know, the hydropower has many benefits, but it also has a number of drawbacks. So, I mean, in a nutshell, the European Green Deal, the underlying principle is to convert the climate and environmental crisis into opportunities in all policy areas, so that the transition is fair to all. And there's many employment prospects, very positive. There's job growth opportunities as you think through what needs to be done to implement the European Green Deal. In fact, the International Renewable Energy Agency last year published a report, and they estimate that there were 11 million clean energy jobs in the world in 2018, and it should go up by 100 million by 2050. So clearly, it's a pro-job growth opportunity for the countries that follow it. But interestingly, there's also another report that from the International Labour Office, the ILO, that finds that the skills gaps and shortages are already recognized as major bottlenecks in the various sectors that are envisaged in the European Green Deal, and notably renewable energy. And so this is some of the information and the data that we have gathered and will disseminate tomorrow. For those who will join tomorrow, they will know more about that. So that's. So just as a teaser for tomorrow. So that's basically the situation with the European Green Deal. It does matter for Albania, and international partners collaborating with Albania must keep that in mind. Now, the question was, what does the EU do? So apart from that, it also the European Green Deal, will also have, and you mentioned that briefly in your introduction, will have an aid dimension for partners. And of course, the closer you are, the more aid you will receive. So no need to mention the Western Balkans, which sits geographically in the middle of the European Union, will get a large chunk of that aid, estimated at 60 billion euros over the 7 years. So something to be looking out for international investments.
So thanks a lot, Benoit. I mean, you mentioned you're actually anticipating a little bit the sneak preview of the findings of our study, which Umuhan is going to talk about. Umuhan, you've been looking at the changing skills needs in the energy sector. I mean, what do you see happening? I mean, what are the dynamics? What is driving these changes in the kind of skills that employers are looking for in the sector?
Thank you, Alastair, for the question. The changes in the skill needs do not happen in vacuum. Basically, they follow the developments in the sector. And my colleagues, both Dorina and Roman, already mentioned a number of them. But in our study, we found particularly effective the following 3 factors. The first factor is obviously the policies driving for greening. And this comes not only for the EU accession agenda as part of Green Deal, but it also comes from the Albanian government, their strategic policy documents about energy, for example, the National Energy Strategy, National Renewable Energy Action Plan, etc. So I think that in Albania, regarding the energy sector, there is a clear drive for greening policies. And this is because of many different reasons. And this is one significant impact which increases the need for skills and labor working in this energy sector with the new drive, greening drive. The second main development which affects the changing skill needs is the technological innovations happening. Already mentioned by other colleagues, for example, the new developments on the solar energy or wind energy. Actually, we observe every day there is something new which makes these 2 sources cheaper or more effective, because it is still on the process of finding the optimum balance between the production and cost. Mm-hmm. So there will be a lot of need for the new skills related to the solar and wind energy in Albania, like in all other countries, but not only. Also, for example, the use of sensors and actuators now installed in the whole production and distribution system, or digitalization in terms of managing and controlling the energy production, the distribution, and transmission as well, which means that like smart grids, for example, linked to the electricity. So this will also have impact on the changing energy skills in the energy sector. And the last one is linked to the environmental sustainability, but also partly linked to the available sources and infrastructure in the country. And in Albania, we all know that the infrastructure of the energy system needs significant updates. This require again skills able to invest in this upgrading, as well as, for example, as mentioned already, hydropower is widely used already, but it has side effects like decreasing rainfalls or increasing warming or higher risks of floods. So and also there is this new trans-Adriatic pipeline for the natural gas, which is coming as a new player, because natural gas was not really there before in Albania. It was very small. Now it can increase as a potential. So all these changes in the sector lead to changes in skill needs.
Thank you, Umuhan. That's interesting. I mean, obviously, when we think about energy and greening, we think automatically about solar panels and wind energy and tidal energy and so on. But I mean, you've brought a broader perspective there. Also, the issue of digitalization and smart grids and how all of that is improving energy efficiency. So we've heard from the experts. Dorina, I mean, how do things look from your perspective as somebody working also in HR in the energy industry? I mean, what gaps do you see between the skills needs that are emerging from all these trends that Umuhan mentioned, and what people actually have, people who are coming into the labor market or people who are on the labor market, the skills that they bring to the table? Well, what is the delta, and how is the sector dealing with this?
Well, actually, the skills needs for every sector of the economy are being defined by the technological changes that are rapidly happening. If we see the big picture as by checking the actual conditions and thinking about the next steps to be taken for the future, this won't work. Why? Because as the speed of the technological and digital transformation is so high that we are already in the future and there's no time left anymore. But we can notice that the major factors of the skills gap we have identified so far in our sector are due to the highly theoretical and not updated curricula, also lack of decent technical labs in the universities. And here I'm mentioning like a list of let's say few of the most tangible ones, like lack of implementation of knowledge through practical intervention on sites, like missing of technical and engineering skills, missing of project management skills, which are really important in our sector, especially for the new, let's say, for new trends of energy production. Basic sales transaction skills, these are linked with the commercial, let's say, activities that the companies has in the country. But on the other side, on the other hand, I must add also that young people, young engineers and young hires that we are having in general do come with very good IT skills. And they are really agile to adapt to new environment, like work environment. And this helps a lot in learning the new processes and applications as soon as they onboard in the company. Actually, our company, as I suppose most of the companies, meet the skills needs through internal trainings of new recruits, being these soft skills and technical skills as well. So carefully, we need to check that we do cover, let's say, many dimensions of the human being here. We have a very broad pack of introductory trainings for the new hires and then dedicated ones for the specific roles that they will cover. And these trainings obviously vary from e-learning, online or physical, supported also by regular coaching and mentoring from the senior staff. But here I would like to add that linked with the specific mission that Schneider Electric has and Schneider brings to the global table, we do organize on-site visits to our smart factories where our innovative approach is revealed. And our active role of CO2 emission reduction is being applied. And to top off, learning new skills is an ongoing process and is linked with new rules, new applications, softwares for internal purposes and external, like commercial purposes as well. So it is a never-ending story of the quest to adapt ourselves to climate change and mitigate the risks that it is bringing to us, to all of us.
Okay, thank you, Dorina. I think it's interesting that, I mean, two things I noticed there. One is you mentioned project management and sales, and these are, very classic areas of skills which you'd say you're missing, and also the emphasis that you put on the soft skills. So it's not all about technology, it's also about attitudes and people's behaviors. So I'd just like to give a shout out to some people out there I see who are following us. I mean, we have some friends from, I saw certainly from Albania. We've got, say hello to Arburim Iseni, who is praising Dorina for her presentation.
It's my colleague.
Very good. You've got your fans out there. That's fantastic. And I saw Anna Zakarian, who is also, I think, a colleague of someone who you know through Albanian Skills.
Yes, we are together at Albanian Skills. Anna is the let's say general lead of Albanian Skills, and she's the one of the, let's say, the most important, let's say, figures of the organization. And I do say hi to Anna as well.
And I think we've got someone from North Macedonia, from Ohrid, Aspazia Hadjishe. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Welcome. Please, Aburim Iseni, and I think we've got someone from Tunisia there. I saw. I'd like to say hello to Riahi Hedia, who's saying maraba from Tunisia. So all of you out there, please, please share your ideas, your comments, and your questions in the chat, because this conversation is going on, and I hope we will have a chance to pick up your questions. So going back to our conversation now, Umuhan, I mean, we've heard from Dorina how things look from the practice, and what light does our ETF study throw on this issue? What are the emerging skills needs and the kind of professional profiles that are going to be needed for the future of the energy transition in Albania?
Yes, our study used actually a combined methodology. So it included big data analysis of scientific articles and patent analysis. It also revised the employment data of the statistics, from Albanian Statistical Office, and we'd also reviewed the sector developments in general. So what we saw as a result are that actually there is really increasing level of skills needs, especially in the medium skill and high skill level. And in terms of professional groups, we see three professional groups. The first professional group is the technical and technology-related occupations. These are not necessarily new occupations. For example, engineers of all various fields, from general profiles such as energy engineer, to more specific occupations such as solar energy engineers, operators, and technicians working in the hydroelectric, hydropower or solar power plants, energy analysts, but also electrical transmission system operators, wind turbine technicians, etc. These are the first group, let's say. And we observe that the numbers needed for these expertise are increasing tremendously. The second group is business services and related operations, as mentioned already by Dorina, like project managers, but also energy managers, renewable energy consultants, sales representatives, operations, manufacturing and operations staff, power plant managers, etc. And the third group of occupations that are coming out every time is linked to the improvement of energy efficiency. Not only in the energy sector, indeed, it's also in the construction sector, because of the insulation of the buildings, transportation modes, and industrial production as well. Even there was this reference to weather forecasters. Given the potential of Albania in terms of hydropower, solar power, and wind power, there is a need for highly sophisticated weather forecasting to get the full benefit of these sources, natural sources. What I mean is that the research show there are some occupations slightly decreasing the need in the traditional ones, and some new ones in the renewable energy field, but most of the time it is existing jobs with new tasks. So the jobs will exist, current occupations, but they need to learn new skills, like taking electricity engineer. He has to learn not only general, traditional, technical skills of being an engineer, he needs to add this information about the solar power generation, about the wind power generation, etc. So the current occupations, current workforce also need to learn new skills.
So thanks, and I assume when you said he there that you also meant she. For engineers.
Yes. You see, I am also very biased as a woman to say he. It's a pity, but this is inside us, you know, under our skins, this gender bias.
But of course, I mean, particularly, I think getting women into, you know, technical professions, of course, is a big challenge. Maybe if we have time, we can put a question to Darina on that. But I'm going to go to our audience now a little bit. We've got Denise from Turin, who has two questions, one specifically for Schneider. So I'll put this one to Darina. Denise asks, does Schneider engage directly with schools and our social partners participating in preparing the green transition?
Once again, sorry, because I heard some noise, and if you can repeat the question.
So about your engagement, I mean, you mentioned that you have open days in your smart factories. I mean, do you engage directly with schools in this? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to explain a little bit what we are doing right now, linked with the SDGs from United Nations SDGs. We are focused, and we have already created the list of let's say sustainability actions that we have to follow in order to get aligned with let's say with our sustainability strategy. And for this we have let's say created this 3 years program that is going to be deployed by giving a hand to academia, universities, technical schools, vet schools, but not only, even to young engineers or young professionals of this field, to interact with us with, let's say, visits at our, like, either mostly, let's say, virtual visits to our smart factories. More precisely for our region is the factory in Plovdiv in Bulgaria, where there are showcased, and let's say all our technological innovative solutions are being applied, and everybody can testimony them. But meanwhile, linked with the 3 years program, we are planning to engage, let's say, all these academia and let's say formation institutions and young people to get to be trained from our side and to be part of our structures as interns as well. But I'm going to catch it a bit later, like I'm going to deep dive a bit, let's say, on
okay. Thanks a lot. No, I mean, I think we've, I mean, from a lot of the work that we've done, we've seen that that it's very important that the young people are able to see the different jobs and professions.
Yes, and it's pretty simple.
Yeah,
it's pretty simple. Like, just follow Schneider Electric on different social media and website as well, and there you will have all the information needed, and everything is like all the, let's say, the agenda of all activities are going to be shared amongst these channels.
Thank you.
welcome.
And I think I'm going to throw this question to Romain. I mean, Romain, you talked about the Albanian the strategy for the energy sector and their strategy for greening. We have Denise is asking, do skills are skills mentioned explicitly in these strategies, and if not, or if, I mean, how can skills development support those strategies as you see it from the ETF perspective?
Good, thank you for that question. Yeah, so in terms of strategies, I was referring to the European Green Deal, which has a number of skills dimension, but in the context of the Albanian strategy, let's say framework, I don't know it in that much detail to answer whether skills features prominently in it. What I can share is some of the findings that Umuhan has already mentioned, and that there will be gaps in the future. The skills mismatch, as we call it, is related to the energy sector and the plethora of occupations that this means will increase. And for example, currently there is no formal training available in Albania for photovoltaic installers. In a country where Doriana explained has the most sunshine in Europe. So that's something that is clearly problematic, and that could be addressed as a quick win very effectively. Now, of course, it's not that simple, and as you yourself said earlier, we often when we talk about green jobs, we immediately associate it with photovoltaic installers or heat pumps or windmills, but it's much more than that. And in fact, Doriana will know more about this than me, but the one thing is the production of energy, but the other thing is the distribution. There's a whole market that exists around that. It's very complex. Umuhan mentioned the smart grids. This has dozens of occupations that are required to operate these smart grids, which are going to only increase as renewable energies, the share of renewable energies increase in Albania. And these are the jobs that need to be, I mean, the skills for these jobs need to be anticipated as of now. Dorina, sorry, said something interesting. She said, we're already in the future. I think she's absolutely right. And now at the level of Albania, we have a lot of information about what's going to be necessary in the short and mid-term. I mean, the ETF study is a milestone in my view, although I'm not very neutral on that subject, but I think it's an important one. But it simply confirms what other researchers find in other countries, and it also confirms what ETF has found in other countries. And you were mentioning earlier that one of our followers is from Tunisia. Well, it turns out we're doing the exact same thing in Tunisia at the moment. So stay tuned for more on Tunisia.
And Roma, I mean, okay, so we see this big skills gap, a growing skills gap emerging. I mean, what kind of advice does I mean, we're ETF, the European Training Foundation. I mean, our mission is to help countries make the most of their human capital. So, what sort of advice can we give to to a country like Albania and the energy sector in Albania about what should they do to address these skills gaps?
Well, the quick answer is to establish state-of-the-art training systems, which and a lot has been done in that regard. But the immediate answer is to at least establish training programs dedicated for the different occupations related to renewable energies. This, to my knowledge, is not available. And we found out through the study that a number of firms in Albania have had to recruit outside of Albania, which is a shame, because there's many talented young people in Albania, and they just don't have the right qualifications. And one of the things that the Albanian system can do is to make sure that the various stakeholders, so the Ministry for Energy, Ministry for Education, Ministry for Labor. In the case of Albania, there's also the National Agency for Employment and Skills, and the NAVETQ, the agency that deals with VET specifically. We would encourage them to get together and see how to address these gaps. And once they agree on what training programs need to be started, then make sure these are implemented with best standards. So lots of work-based learning, deep links with the private sector, optimal use of digital technology, career guidance, teacher training, all the dimensions that make a training system effective and efficient.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm going to just jump in here. We've heard a lot from Dorina's fans earlier on, but I see we're reaching out a bit beyond Albania. We've got I'd like to say hi to Statis Nikitop from Moscow and to Tariq Mansour from Bangladesh. So it's great. We're even getting outside of our own continent. And I think, I hope this is a subject that is interesting people all around the world. I think it's certainly a vital one. Getting back then, I mean, Roma, let's say, gave us a flavor of what, of what could be the solution to this. Obviously, from what I hear there, I see companies need to be involved, the government needs to be involved. There's a role also for non-governmental organizations like Albanian Skills. So, Dorina, from your perspective, I mean, what do you see about the role of all these different actors, how they can work together to deliver a good result for Albania and for the energy sector?
Well, Alastair, you and Romain already mentioned what I was going to share with all of you. So, but in my opinion, let's say, additionally, for a greater impact and capillarity of the skilling process, several, or let's say a wider presence of stakeholders should be considered, not only industry and academia or the let's say the state or the government, but academia, civil society, government, the industry, and why not even the young generations, like youngsters, to be part of the process as well, because they're going to be, let's say, the first who are going to benefit out of all these, let's say, actions. Now, we are headed towards a common global goal, and therefore we should be all in it and do our best to make it efficient. So it's something like is a game that has to be played by everyone. But of course, companies are the source from where all this demand for skilled people comes from. Companies and, let's say, government, or I mean, everybody is waiting to have these skilled people to be part of their teams. Okay, and let's say these things should be echoed in real time by universities, by vet schools, training centers, by offering this innovative and updated formation. But at the same time, the government should be present in this process as a facilitator, and also civil society as a skills and values promoter. So everybody should give a hand. I can share here the example of our close collaboration between Schneider and our partners, because we invited also our partners, our local partners, to be part of these activities that we are doing with Albanian Skills. And since many years, we have been partnering to define the needs for now, how, and offered in a regular basis, like webinars, seminars, trainings, workshops, and this was offered to young engineers, students, technical staff, I mean, and who was interested to attend. Okay, so we also provided them free access to our technical materials and software, so they can put their hands on the actual technologies and digital changes that are happening. So And this really makes me proudly share that at Schneider, we foster learning, we foster the upskilling and develop the generations. So we pave the way for the next. There are many initiatives, actually. I mentioned some of them, but I would like to remind as well the training that we offer to underprivileged young people, or helping students to innovate through our Go Green program, Schneider Electric Go Green program. Right now, as I mentioned before, I'm personally involved in this 3-year sustainability program that is based on the UN SDGs and locally focused on young generations intake, learning and development for students, and the reduction of carbon footprint at our smart factory in Plovdiv in Bulgaria.
Okay, thank you very much, Dorina. There's a question from one of the audience members, which I want to put to you, Dorina, but we've been hearing a lot from you. I want to go back to Umuhan now. We mentioned that Umuhan, you have been involved in a series of studies of this type in different sectors, in different countries where the ETF works. I mean, we've been doing things in Israel, in Turkey, in automobile sector, in farming, and I hear from Homa that we're branching out to Tunisia. I mean, we're looking at one case study here, one sector in Albania. I'm sure you must see parallels across countries in different sectors. So, what is actually happening in these different sectors? How are companies responding to changing skills needs? What are they doing practically? And are there some things that you could point out as being examples that perhaps they could follow?
Yes. Yes, actually, the companies are the frontliners of these challenges because they are the ones which suffer from skill gaps, skills mismatches. What I see as a result that is very much depending on the company size and also the sector, I must say. Because what we see in general is that there is a skills shortage, sometimes gaps and sometimes mismatches in all the sectors we analyzed so far. I mean, there is no single employer who says that he or she is fully satisfied with the workers. This is maybe a bit employer's perspective, but there is this general dissatisfaction about the skills everywhere. That is the first point. And the reasons are also very similar. They mention about outdated curricula. They mentioned about the retirement of experienced workers, which is, by the way, also the case in Albania in the energy sector. At least this is what companies told us. Emigration of qualified professionals, which is also very relevant for Albania, and sometimes a lack of know-how transfer from the international contractors, especially in the area of energy, for example, because the contracts are very big, generally made by international companies, and there is a need to transfer know-how to the local workforce. So what companies are doing in general is that the first thing, all companies try to recruit the young blood with the new skills. That is the first thing, of course, they do, but not always with the success. For different reasons, not only because of the lack of skills, but also because maybe the lack of competitive wages, because there might be some skills with the same, for example, digital skills, also for the energy sector. There might be some people with very highly developed digital skills, but in order to prefer a job in energy sector, the companies should be able to propose them a competitive salary, which is not always the case. So what they do is they do go and provide internal training for the new recruits, almost irrespectively also for medium and high skills. So not only high skills, it's low, medium, and high. And normally internal training is a combination of both soft and technical skills. So they highly appreciate soft skills. It is, as far as I could see, soft skills are as important as technical skills for companies. In some countries, big companies were able to open training academies of their own. And it is really admirable to have that level of investment, but this is not always easy to do because of the cost required. So there should be other ways, like sectoral associations, which provide these kind of trainings, maybe more to the medium and low-size companies, because they are not in the position to provide this training. Maybe one last thing to mention is also in some countries, they go for sectoral associations, and the sectoral associations are very strong in some countries, but in others maybe not that level. This depends on the vibrant private sector's availability in the given country. For example, in Turkey, in the automotive sector, I was amazed by the strength of the sectoral associations in the field of automotive, because they are quite strong in general and they organized very well to face the challenges, not only from the policy side, but also technology side. So they are the ones which provide training in most cases rather than the companies. I know that in Albania, there is a recently created sectoral committee for energy sector, which is, in my opinion, a great start. Of course, the challenge is really to take the full advantage of the sectoral committee to create the necessary skills and the new workforce with all these needs that we mentioned.
Thank you, Umuhan. So basically, you're saying, businesses need to organize and they need to cooperate amongst themselves and think of things in a sector-wide approach. I'm sure that Dorina has taken that message on board. We've got one question here from one of our followers from North Macedonia, saying that this is Aspasia Hadzice. Hi, Aspasia. She says, being a neighboring country with climate similarities, I would say that there's potential for bilateral cooperation with North Macedonia in this area. Can we, would somebody like to pick up the question of, let's say, regional cooperation in the energy sector on greening? I don't know if Dorina or Roman, do we know anything about this?
I think Dorina is better positioned for that one.
Okay, we'll put Dorina on there. So does greening, does energy stop at the borders of Albania, or are you reaching out to the other neighboring countries in the Balkans on these issues?
I suppose that let's say the cooperation is indispensable, and the fact that we are, let's say, countries being part of the Western Balkans as a full package that is being prepared and getting ready to access European Union, obviously the let's say cooperation and let's say collaboration should be very strong. If I understood well the question, or maybe it was something else.
Yes, it was a friend, one of our followers from North Macedonia, suggesting that there's a potential for cooperation across borders on these issues.
Definitely, yes, obviously, because we are really close. But even if we had been like in distance, these are topics that are to close interest to everyone and to, let's say, worldwide, because the changes are happening in the entire world. And obviously the needs for upskilling and reskilling is global. So the cooperation should be like without limitations of countries and let's say geographical locations. This is how I see it. And
well, I think I think the ETF and the work that we've been doing show. I mean, what Umuhan was saying earlier shows to what extent these issues are shared by countries and shared by different sectors as well. Yeah. So I think we hope at the ETF that if we can bring something to this discussion, it's the ability to show what's happening in different countries, what's happening in different sectors, and share that knowledge and expertise and experience that's being built up. So we're coming right to the end of this broadcast now. I think we've got just a few minutes left. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, Dorina, is, I mean, we've done, particularly in the Western Balkans, we've done surveys of young people, in cooperation also with UNICEF to understand young people's concerns. And one thing I think which comes on the top of the agenda in wherever we go is the threat to the climate and young people's concern about the future of the planet and the environment. And also at the same time, there's a huge interest among young people for actually doing something, and even professionally, how to their big interest in working in the green economy. So what would you say to the young people who might be watching this? What would you say? You're concerned about the planet. You want to change things. How do you get involved? What do you have to do to get into the green economy?
Actually, I'm very delighted to learn that many young people are attending this session and really are curious to learn more and to get to prepare themselves for the green transition in our sector, but not only in all the sectors, because the climate change is something that is impacting our entire planet, and obviously we'll have to adapt to all and to take, let's say, fast steps to catch this moment in time and be ready for any let's say thing in the future. But it's interesting because tomorrow we'll have the International Youth Day, the day that is designed by the United Nations and focused on the strategic importance of equipping young people with skills for employment, decent work, and entrepreneurship. And my piece of advice to Albanian youth, and not only to all young people that are attending or young people everywhere, is to approach this goal towards the green economy as a top priority of our existence. And to achieve it, they should not stop learning new skills by following the trendsetters, by following the innovators, like the innovative companies that are offering, are showing to the world what we should do, which next steps we should take to make it happen, to take these bold and noble steps towards our sustainable and green future, because this is our direction, actually, should be our direction, and it is.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dorina, and I'd like to thank all of our participants. I think we've got 1 minute. I don't know if Roma and Umuhan would like to add something to what Dorina said about young people and skills.
I can to complement what Dorina's difficult to complement what she said because it was very deep, but maybe. We've dedicated most of this discussion to the very technical nature of the energy transition, and clearly that's very important. There's a whole economy that is based on that, but maybe, and this is where I compliment Dorina, consider that this is part of a bigger, the green transition. Energy is one dimension, but there's many dimensions of the green transition, and this requires. Social scientists, they call it a paradigm shift. It requires a complete change of mentality. It requires that we learn many new things, but it also means that we unlearn some of the things that are wrong in our system. And so the education systems around the world need to consider this. And as much as they specialize and teach very technical subjects in vocational schools or at tertiary level, they must also consider the mindset right from primary school. We all need to change the way we learn and learn differently, and this starts in primary school.
Okay, thanks a lot, Romain. I think that can be the last word. Sorry, Umuhan, I can see your lips moving.
I was just to add, if they want to, anyone would like to learn more about the study, please join us tomorrow, just to remind again. They will hear much more details of the study. And I would like to add to the list this basic change in the human behaviors in terms of energy saving approach as well. You know, how we use our water and everything.
True.
Okay, thank you very much, Umuhan. And I think this is, a salutary message that in this green transition, there's quite a few things we need to forget how to do. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks everyone who's been watching this, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Goodbye.